I want to thank Assemblywoman Holly Mitchell, who's the chair of the Budget Subcommittee 1 that deals with a lot of the difficult issues related to IHSS and healthcare. And we're just so excited that she's taken the time to let us interview her. One of the things that, I've noticed your passion and the way that you speak to the consumers afterwards in the hall at the hearings and stuff. And I know that you're familiar with IHSS.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the most successful part of the program?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be with you, and I appreciate your recognition of my commitment and the real hard work I do put in as chair of Sub 1 to really try to make sure we're making the best decisions we can given the circumstances we're all confronting as Californians. An advocate in Budget Subcommittee yesterday, I think, summarized it brilliantly. Deborah Doctor from Disability Rights California, and she was there testifying in the context of the Developmental Disabilities Department. And she made an observation. She said we were talking about the closures of the DCs, Lantern Inn and Sonoma, and she said that she hopes that one day we have a broad attitude about closing large kind of facilities and directing our energies to building community-based spaces for those who need them. And so she said that, the hearing room was clear that we've got to close the big institutions and create community spaces for folks with developmental disabilities. And she said, and I wish that we could be in a space one time when we're clear that nursing homes is not the ideal place, but homes, your private home, your own home, community-based places. And that's what IHSS is. It's an opportunity for people to get the support they need and maintain their independence in their own home. And it makes perfect sense. That should be our goal for all Californians who need the help.
Excellent. And we appreciate your advocacy in this area. And one of the things that I know must be a challenge is IHSS is only one program that you're looking at, and there's a lot of aspects to IHSS that we're facing the challenges. When you're making decisions, what's the hardest part for you to have to make these budget cuts?
It feels like the last 2 years for me have felt like it's a zero-sum game. My options and choices were limited because the only, the best option, the more humane option was to identify additional resources to grow our general fund to provide services that I believe California residents are entitled to. And the hardest part for me is to hear from consumers. And I will never forget as long as I live, hearing consumers, particularly in that first year, my first year, say to me, you want to cut 8 hours from my support out of IHSS. Which 8 hours out of the day would you suggest I eliminate? There were a number of consumers who talked about needing help, needing to be intubated. And what 8 hours? Overnight? What happens? Those who have mobility challenges. I wake up at 6 a.m. and if my employee doesn't get there till noon, I'm going to be in the bed for those 6 hours. Really recognizing what the cuts equated in terms of real life experience for me, I guess, is the toughest. And that's why the hearings are important. So myself and all of my colleagues understand in practical real life experience what these numbers on a piece of paper that we're looking at really mean. That's what's tough for me.
Yeah, I can understand how difficult it is to hear their stories, but it sounds like it's important that you do get to hear those stories and that your colleagues get to hear those stories.
Oh, it's critically important. We have to understand that this is not monopoly money and it's not a game, that we are making decisions that will have a direct impact on the life of Californians. These are life and death decisions that we've made in the last couple of years. And recognizing that we could have made a resource decision that compromised a fellow Californian's not ability to thrive, but ability to survive is very serious business. And, sometimes sitting on budget sub one, that I hear other debates and other issues, I'm like, that's trivia compared to the decisions around the cuts to IHSS, the cuts to the Department of Developmental Disabilities, the elimination of adult day health services, all of these moving parts that we're trying to manage, all of which impact a vulnerable population.
And IHSS supports a very, as you mentioned, vulnerable population. It's a grassroots program, and you're from LA County, where we have 180,000 people on this program,
with projections for increase in the caseload.
Absolutely. And so as that caseload increases, it's going to make it much tougher for the legislation to make these decisions. Besides testifying in the hearings, what other ways can the IHSS recipient make a difference?
Very good question. And sometimes I know the challenge it presents to come up here to be in Sacramento to tell your personal story. I know it's very emotional. I know it's very physically taxing. And so while I hate to put that extra burden on IHSS recipients, I think it's important. But that's not their only opportunity. We've worked really hard to try to get our budget hearings kind of telecast, webcast live, so IHSS recipients can be in LA or some other large city and go to a place and be able to actively engage in the hearing, not just watch it. And technology at the state level is not quite that advanced yet, but it's something I'm continuing to pursue. But writing letters and reaching out to their elected officials when they're in their districts is important. Organizing a group of folks and getting on the calendar. I've met with any number of people who are active in PASC in my district office in LA who've come to educate me on the issue. So you don't have to just come to Sacramento, and you don't have to wait for budget season. It's important to make sure that the people you elect, we work for you, we're public servants, understand how critical these programs are in their home districts, how critical they are to their constituents.
You and I have talked about the difficulty in getting this information out to people, and with all the changes that are happening, not only to the IHSS cuts, but CalMedi Connect and the Healthcare Exchange.
And just all the acronyms you just now rattled off that 2 years ago didn't exist. Those are all new terms and new programs.
So I wanted, to thank you for doing this call with us tonight. I think it's an excellent way that we can reach people. One of the things that we're trying to do at PASC is use technology as much as we can. And so tonight, when we do this robocall, I'm just hoping that we're going to be able to get a lot of people and answer their questions. And we're so excited that you're taking the lead in this, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, I'm thrilled that you were interested in kind of being innovative and thinking outside the box and trying to look at ways to engage technology and getting the word out and having a dialogue and a conversation about these program changes. At my level, we make these sweeping changes, and then frankly, in many instances, we move on to the next budget cycle, the next budget year, the next problem. And we don't often have to work hand in hand with the recipient or provider community to talk about now, how do we implement this policy change? So there's so many things happening that are new, but I'm proud and happy to have the opportunity to engage with you to figure out how we really empower and educate consumers about how they'll be impacted by these sweeping policy changes.
Well, I just think it's amazing that, right in the middle of session, you do 2 budget hearings a week, that you're taking the time to do this interview and do the call tonight. So thank you very much.
It's an important subject matter for me as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.